The Buddha then asked Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Buddha have human eyes? Subhuti replied, yes, he has human eyes. Does he has the eye of enlightenment? Of course, the Buddha has the eyes of enlightenment, otherwise he would not be the Buddha. Does the Buddha have the eyes of transcendent intelligence? Yes, the Buddha has the eye of transcendent intelligence. Does the Buddha have the eyes of spiritual intuition? Yes, blessed one, the Buddha has the eyes of spiritual intuition. Does the Buddha have the eyes of love and compassion for all sentient beings? Subhuti agreed and said, you love all sentient life. What do you think, Subhuti? When I refer to the grain of sand in the river Ganges, did I assert that there were truly grains of sand? No, blessed one, you only spoke of them as grains of sand. Subhuti, if there were as many Ganges river as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges, and if there were as many Buddha lands as there are grains of sand in all these innumerable rivers, would this Buddha land be considered numerous? Very numerous indeed. Subhuti, I know the mind of every sentient being in all of the hosted universe, regardless of any modes of thought, conceptions, or tendency, for all modes, conceptions, and teaching of thought are not mind, and yet they are called mind. Why? It is impossible to retain a past thought, to seize a future thought, and even to hold on to the present thought. The Buddha continued, what do you think, Subhuti? If a follower were to give away enough treasure to fill 3,000 universes, would a great beings and merit incur to him or her? Subhuti replied, honored one, such a follower would acquire considerable blessing and merit. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if such a blessing had substantially, if it were anything other than a figure of speech, the most honored one would not have used the words blessing or merits. Subhuti, what do you think? Should one look for Buddha, his perfect physical body? No, perfectly not one. One should not look for Buddha in his perfect physical body. Why? The Buddha has said that the perfect physical body is not the perfect physical body, therefore it is called the perfect physical body. Subhuti, what do you think? Should one look for Buddha in all his perfect appearance? No, most honored one. One should not look for Buddha in all his perfect appearance. Why? The Buddha has said perfect appearance or not perfect appearance. Therefore, they are called perfect appearance. Subhuti, do not maintain that the Buddha has this thought. I have spoken spiritual truth. Do not think that way. Why? If someone say the Buddha has spoken spiritual truth, he slanders the Buddha due to his inability to understand what the Buddha teaches. Subhuti, as to teaching truth, no truth can be spoken. Therefore, it is called speaking truth. At that time, Subhuti, the wise elder, addressed the Buddha, most honored one, will there be living beings in the future who believes in the sutra when they hear it? The Buddha said, the living beings to whom you refer are neither living beings or not living beings. Why? Subhuti, all the different kinds of living beings the Buddha speaks of are not living beings, but they are referred to as living beings. Subhuti again asked, blessed one, when you attained complete enlightenment, did you feel in the mind that nothing had been acquired? The Buddha replied, that is exactly, Subhuti. When I attained total enlightenment, I did not feel, as the mind feels, any arbitrary conceptions of spiritual truth, not even the slightest. Even the words total enlightenment are merely words. They are used merely as a figure of speech. Furthermore, Subhuti, what I have attained in total enlightenment is the same as what all others have attained. It is undifferentiated, regarded neither as a high state nor a low state. It is wholly independent of any definite or arbitrary conceptions of any individual self, other selves, living beings, and universal self. Subhuti, when one self is selflessly charitable, they should also practice being ethical by remembering that there is no distinction between all self and the other selfhood of others. Thus, one practice charity by giving not only gifts, but through kindness and sympathy. Practice kindness and charity without attachment, and you can fully become enlightened. Subhuti. What I just said about kindness does not mean that when someone is being charitable, they should hold on to arbitrary conceptions about kindness. For kindness is, after all, only a word. A charity needs to be spontaneous and selfless, done with regards of appearances. Subhuti continued, Subhuti, if a person collected treasure as high as 3,000 of the highest mountains, and gave them all to the others, their merit would be less than what would occur to another person who simply observed and studied the sutra, and out of kindness explained to it others. The latter person would accumulate hundreds of times the merit, hundreds of thousands of thousands of merit. There is no considerable comparison. Subhuti, do not say the Buddha has the idea, I will lead all sentient beings to nirvana. Do not think that way, Subhuti. Why? In truth, there is not one single being for Buddha to lead the enlightenment. If the Buddha were to think there was, he would be caught in the idea of a self, person, and living beings, or universal self. Subhuti, what the Buddha calls a self, is essentially has no self in the way that ordinary people think there is a self. Subhuti, the Buddha does not regard anyone as an ordinary person. That is why he can speak of them as ordinary person. Then the Buddha inquired Subhuti, what do you think, Subhuti? Is it possible to recognize the Buddha by the 32 physical marks? Subhuti replied, yes, most honored one, the Buddha may thus be recognized. Subhuti, if that were true, then Chakravartin, the mythological king who has 32 monks, would be called the Buddha. The Subhuti realizing his error and said, most honored one, now I realize that the Buddha cannot be recognized merely by 32 physical marks of excellence. The Buddha then said, should anyone looking at an image or likeness of Buddha claim to know the Buddha and worship him, that person would be mistaken, not knowing the Buddha. However, Subhuti, if you think that the Buddha realizes the highest, most fulfilled and awakened mind, and does not need to have all marks, you are mistaken. Subhuti, do not think in that way. Do not think that when one gives rise to the highest, most fulfilled and awakened mind, one needs to see all objects of mind as non-existent, cut off from life. Please do not think in that way. One who gives rise to the highest, most fulfilled and awakened mind does not content that all objects of mind are non-existent and cut off from life. That is not what I say. Buddha continued, Subhuti, if someone gives treasures to equal to the number of sands on the shore of the Ganges River, and if another, having realized the egolessness of all things, thereby understands selflessness, the latter would be more blessed than the who practice the external charity. Why? Because great disciple does not see blessing and merits as a private possession, as something to be gained. Subhuti inquired of the Buddha, What do you mean, great disciple does not see blessing and merits as a private possession? The Buddha replied, because those blessing and merits have never been sought after by those great disciples, they do not see them as a private possession, but they see them as the common possessions of all being. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if any person were to say that the Buddha is now coming or going, or sitting or lying down, they would not have understood the principle I have been teaching. Why? Because while the expression Buddha means he who has thus come, thus gone, the true Buddha is never coming from anywhere or going anywhere. The name Buddha is merely an expression, a figure of speech. The Buddha resumed, Subhuti, if any good person, either man or woman, were to take 3,000 galaxies and grind them into microscopic powder and blow into the space, what do you think? Would this powder have an individual existence? Subhuti replied, yes. As a microscopic powder blown into the space, it might be said to have a relative existence. But as you use words, it has no existence. The words are used only as a figure of speech. Otherwise, the words would imply a belief in the existence of matter as an independent and self-existing things, which is not. Furthermore, when the most honored one refers to 3,000 galaxies, he could only do so as a figure of speech. Why? Because if the 3,000 galaxies really existed, their only reality would consist in their cosmic unity, whether as cosmic microscopic powder or as galaxies. What does it matter? Only in the sense of the cosmic unity of ultimate being can be Buddha rightfully referred to it. The Buddha was very pleased with this reply and said, Subhuti, all the ordinary people have always grasped after an arbitrary conceptions of matters and galaxies. The concept has no true basis. It is an illusion of the mortal mind. Even when it is referred to as cosmic unity, it is unthinkable and unknowable. Buddha continued, if any person were to say that the Buddha in his teaching has constantly referred it to himself, to other selves, to living beings, or to universal self, what do you think? Would that person have understood my meaning? Subhuti replied, no, blessed one, that person would not have understood the meaning of your teaching. But when you refer to those things, you are not referring to their actual existence. You only use the words as figure of speech, as symbol. Only in that sense can words be used, for conceptions, ideas, limited truth, and spiritual truth have no more reality than have matter or phenomena. Then the Buddha made his meaning even more emphatic by saying, Subhuti, when people begin their practice by seeking to attain total enlightenment, they ought to see, to perceive, to know, to understand, and to realize that all things and all spiritual truths are no things, and therefore they ought not to conceive within their minds any arbitrary conception whatsoever. Buddha continued, Subhuti, if anyone gave to the Buddha an immeasurable quantity of the seven treasures sufficient to fill the whole universe, and if another person, whether a man or woman, in seeking to attain complete enlightenment, were to endlessly and faithfully observe and study even a single section of the sutra and explain it to others, the accumulated blessings and merits of that later person would be far greater. Subhuti, how can one explain this sutra to others without holding in mind any arbitrary conceptions of forms, phenomena, or spiritual truth? It can only be done, Subhuti, by keeping the mind in perfect tranquility and free from any attachment appearances. So I say to you, this is how contemplates your conditioned existence in the fleeting world. Like a tiny drop of dew, or a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lights in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom, or a dream. So it's all conditioned existence to be seen. Thus spoke Buddha. Thanks for joining as always. I hope you have a lovely day as we are, and I'll see you tomorrow.